So far, we have learned Sabbath year and Jubilee as a theological background of BAM. Then, now, let us summarize Jubilee. We can summarize Jubilee in 11 items. First one, land belongs to God, therefore, you cannot purchase or sell permanently. Second, if your brothers or relatives' land is sold, you are to redeem it. Third one, if the one who sold the land become rich, then he himself will redeem it. Fourth, if the one who sold the land cannot redeem it or doesn't have any redeemer, in the year of Jubilee, the land will return to the original owner. Fifth, a house in the walled city can be redeemed within 1 year. Sixth, a house of Levite can be redeemed anytime, even though it is inside the city, inside a walled city. Seventh, a house outside the castle or walled city can be redeemed anytime. Eighth, if you cannot redeem the house, then in the year of Jubilee, it will return to you. Ninth, if your brothers are sold as servants or slaves, then the closest relative must redeem them. 10th, if you become rich, then you yourself redeem. 11th, if you cannot redeem yourself, then you have to wait until the year of Jubilee, then you will be set free. Now, then, we are going to study the theological meaning of Jubilee. Theological meaning of Jubilee. First one, the land belongs to God. The land, actually, the land, the word is ahutza, because the land is actually translated also as possession. So this land or the possession belongs to God. That is the land or the possession of God. So because the land originates from God, so God is the only permanent owner of the land. Therefore, no Israelite have their own land. Actually, they are kind of tenants. They live their life in the land of Canaan as tenants. So therefore, even though they are given the land possession, so they cannot purchase or sell permanently. And even you cannot privatize it. You cannot accumulate it. You cannot expand it. This is totally different idea of capitalism. In our capitalistic society, if you have more money, you can buy more land. But in the society of Israel, in the time of Old Testament, you cannot expand the land. You cannot accumulate land. Second, this law means the law of Jubilee originates from fear of God. Fear of God. As a covenant community, Israel made a covenant with God on Mount Sinai, and they experienced God with fear. So the fear that they experienced on Mount Sinai developed into the idea of fear of God. So even the law of Jubilee originates from this idea. Why should Israel obey the law of Jubilee? Because they fear of God. This law of Jubilee, must be kept. If they do not keep this law, they will be kicked off from the land. Leviticus chapter 26, right after chapter 25, which records the law of Jubilee. In this chapter 26, it is written that if you do not obey the law of Jubilee, you will be kicked off. You will get covenant curse, and you'll be kicked off, and then you'll be you will be taken to foreign lands as slaves. Number 3, this is the social welfare. This is the law of social welfare in the kingdom of God. Which respect those who went bankrupt. This law of Jubilee is for socially and economically weak people. So, as we already studied, so all the families of Israel will farm, but the harvest is not equal. The harvest is not the same. Someone have enough harvest, someone has much lack. So those do not have enough harvest will fall to peasantry or tenant farmer. Then even in the position of tenant farmer, still they if they don't have enough harvest, they will fall into slave or servants. Once they become slaves or servants, they will be treated harshly. It happened in the history of Israel. But to protect these people, God gave them the law of Jubilee and then protect them and have them to be respected by their masters. This way, the land of Canaan can be the land of social welfare, where the will of God is realized. Number four, Israel is servant before God and free citizen before man. Yes. Think about this. Servants belong to masters. See? Servants belongs to masters. But Israel, God is the master of Israel. Therefore, Israel belongs to God. So, Israel is the servant of God. They work, they farm on the land which was given by God. They work on the land as the tenant or as the servant of God, not servant of man. So, Israel are free citizen before among them. So therefore, they cannot be treated, even though they fall into the position of slave. So they cannot be harshly treated. Or even though you possess servants, you cannot treat them harshly. You cannot press them. Then you need to treat them as just worker. And then in the year of Jubilee, you need to set them free because they are originally free citizen of God. Free citizen before man. So one of the reasons of Jesus Christ to come to the world is to set Israel free and set us free. Number 5. Number 5. This law is to control your greed and to realize the righteousness of God. This law aims to control greed and to realize the righteousness of God. In our capitalistic society, so actually wealth is usually handed down to descendants. But according to the law of Jubilee, wealth cannot be handed down. Why? Because even though you will be rich until the 49th year, then 50th year, you need to return the land you bought. So in the 50th year, everybody will be equal in economic power. Not exactly, we cannot say that, we cannot say exactly the same, but almost same. So in this sense, the wealth that your father, your forefather have cannot be handed down. So this way, actually, if you keep this law or the principle of Jubilee, then you will control your greed. In our capitalistic society, greed will bear more greed and bigger greed. But if you keep the law of Jubilee, you can control your greed. And by controlling greed, you can realize, you can practice the righteousness of God. Then in this way, the society of Israel can be full in righteousness of God. It's up here. So in our next session, we are going to study Goel system, which is one of the most important systems in Jubilee. Thank you very much.